Welcome back to In Ohio Country today, and we're here at the Allen Davis Insurance Risk Management Seminar for 2026. Talking about a lot about crop insurance and how to manage your risk. But with us today is Barry Ward from Ohio State University, and Barry, thanks for being with us. The last time we caught up with you was at the Farm Science Review. But before we get started, tell us a little bit about your background, a little bit about you.
Sure. Yep. Thanks for having me, first of all. And I appreciate being here. My background includes, I grew up on a grain farm and a livestock farm in Champaign County, and that led me eventually to Ohio State. I got a couple degrees there, and now I've worked for them for over 30 years now, and my work includes mostly farm management, either extension or research. So I do a lot of work in crop economics, land economics, and I teach at Ohio State as well. So that's brought me here.
Well, exactly, and one of the things that our producers like to hear about, we talk about insurance and risk management, but also it's the economics of the farm, and that's what we were covering today.
It was, and as you know, it's going to create some challenges for us this year as we look forward, especially grain producers across Ohio. It's not news to you or any of them. We've been dealing with this for the last couple of years, where we've had some challenges with the combination of lower crop prices and elevated input costs. And this year is not going to be any different. And it's there are some bright spots and some little pieces here and there that are going to be a little bit more palatable for us, a little lower energy costs as we look at that particular piece, but still challenges with fertilizer, seed, chemical, and machinery costs.
Well, yeah, all those things. And of course, producers always want to know what's it going to look like in the future and what do you think about fertilizer and things like that. And you also talked about a couple of things. I think there's some misinformation, if you would, to producers about how the tariffs, everybody thinks the tariffs affect all these fertilizer prices.
Yeah, and that's been taken off. We looked back into 25, and there were tariffs levied on some countries, and so those were impacting some of our fertilizer prices through April through November, and those were taken off. So tariffs aren't a factor right now, and they may have been back there in the last year, but not this year. So we still have countervailing duties on certain phosphate products out of Morocco and Russia, but those are fairly minimal.
So, the input costs, we were talking about fertilizer, and one other thing that you mentioned was, the variable costs, right? Machinery and those kind of things, right?
Yeah. I mean, machinery costs are a tremendous amount and very sticky. We're not probably going to see anytime soon fertilizer prices, the price of a new tractor, combine, what have you, come down. So producers are going to have to get creative. They're going to have to understand their costs, first of all, and allocating those costs. But it's one of those things that we're just going to have to learn to manage that particular piece. And maybe in some ways we can find some cost savings if we're creative. But it's one of those costs that we're stuck with for now.
Another item that's on everybody's mind is property taxes, right? That's, obviously, as we know, there's a lot of petitions trying to circulate with abolishing property taxes, which is not really going to be feasible, in my opinion. But where do you see the CAUV values and all those things going?
Well, we are going to see a little bit of better news this year. We're going to see CAUV values that are going to be lower than where they were 3 years ago, and part of the problem is that in every county, we only see these reappraisals or updates every 3 years. So oftentimes it's sticker shock when we start to look at these. And this year we should see lower CAUV values. It doesn't necessarily mean property taxes on that farmland will be lower, but it's likely. Generally, overall, I'm with you. I think these thoughts about abolishing property taxes, while on the surface may sound good to some people, I think have to have alternatives in place before we do that. Now, the legislature just recently passed a number of measures. There were 5 pieces of legislation that passed in December and the governor signed. We won't see any direct and immediate impact on property taxes, but going out further, we should see some relief, at least some, as a result of those.
Well, I have also noticed that some of the local jurisdictions, like our local school district, and some of those folks have said, "Look, we have the money. We're in a good spot. We're willing to give up some of that, and that's going to give some relief." But that's really on a local basis. But we're seeing that happen as well.
Yep, I've heard the same. There hopefully will be some practical, kind of common sense solutions in each community, but I think generally we're going to have a little bit different infrastructure in funding, especially as these values have increased residential, and that's the main one.
We talked a lot about input costs, machinery costs, those kind of things. And then people think about what deductions can I get? And you touched on one, and I've kind of looked into it, right, that producers really need to be wary of. And you want to just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's the one that's getting all the press in the farm press, and that's the residual or the excess or the legacy fertility deduction. We're seeing a lot of questions coming to us, and we're getting a lot of questions from tax practitioners around the state that are seeing this for the first time. Some of their clients are coming to them and saying that we can take this huge deduction, and many of these tax preparers are a little bit uncertain, and I think with good reason. It depends a little bit on your level of risk, and effectively what we're looking at is being able to take and look at a purchased farm or an inherited farm and taking a certain amount of the value of that purchase and allocate it to excess fertility that might be present in that soil, and then being able to deduct that. So a lot of aggressive promoters out there that are indicating that you can take these huge deductions based on this purchase. We're just urging caution, urging you to really do your homework. Contact us if you have some questions, but we think that it's a deduction you can take if it's done right. But it has some costs. These promoters are charging for the information that they're providing.
Well, Barry, if somebody wanted to get more information about the topics we talked about today, where can they go?
Well, they can contact me by email or phone. My email address is ward.8@osu.edu. Of course, they can stop by campus and see me, but my phone number there is 614-688-3959.
Well, Barry, thanks for being with us.
It's my pleasure. Hey, thanks for having me.
We'll be back with more in Ohio Country Today right after this.